Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? Okay, plan for tonight is first record a private citizen for which I am a day too late. I'm gonna record that and then I'm gonna prep it on stream and then release it. And I'm gonna take a break, probably a bit longer break, but just 15 minutes or whatever. And then I'm probably gonna play some Elden Ring tonight, if there's enough time. I'm pretty sure I will. I'm probably not gonna do Margaret today because I got some other ideas. There's some other bosses that you can do before I probably think that's a good idea. Also to prep and stuff. But yeah, we'll see. But first things first. I'll have to record a private citizen. What do you mean? What do I mean? I have to. I want to as well, because this is a very important topic. But we'll have to do that first, because if I start playing Elden Ring, we're not going to do a podcast. Let's be honest. All right. Found a hidden cave. Yeah, I don't know if is that the cave with the like NPC raid thing, where you get invaded. There's a cave there. I need to do that. There's a boss in there. There's some other bosses I think that we can do and level up and shit. But maybe you can guide me to that hidden cave later, Indy. That worked great yesterday. If you guide me. Anyway, let's start. Yeah, okay. If we don't arm any tracks, then we can't record on any tracks. That is a thing. Oh no, it's a stone golem. All right. We'll see. I also want to fight that Black Knight and that guy at that castle here. The castle guy. There's a guy in the castle apparently as well. The neighbor was just greeting me, walking past, going, "Yeah." All right, got the window open a little bit because it's actually a nice view. See if this works. The sun's going down. It's like nice sky and whatever. And that guy at that castle here. The castle guy. There's a guy in the castle apparently as well. Okay, so we got that. We got this. We got this. We got that. It looks like it's recording. Let's do this. We're going to talk about Facebook today and their hypocrisy, which is knows no bounds. Pretty amazing, actually. It's like an actual real what the fuck story. So let's do the podcast, shall we? I'll just get straight into it. I think, yeah. Let's do it. Oh, maybe I should press record. Maybe that would be a good idea if we're trying to record a podcast. All right. There will be a lot of goddamn Ruskies today. Probably not in this show, actually. Russia is not so much of a topic today, I think. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 111 for Thursday. All right. For Thursday. Let's redo that. All right. Let's redo this. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 111 for Thursday, the 17th of March, 2022. Peak Hypocrisy. Hello everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Fab, come to you live from Düsseldorf in Germany. Nice for you to join me on this Thursday. We're gonna get back to Wednesday releases soon, probably next week, and we're gonna talk about Facebook today and hypocrisy. Also, an update on the Biden laptop, which I think we have to talk about. But before we get into that, I'm again a day late. My excuse this time, once again. I had a tattoo done yesterday. Well, I had it was done in two parts. So it was finished yesterday. And I just, in my head, I just taken the day off. And I just didn't want to, I just want to give myself into a little bit of pain. Actually, it's not that bad, actually. It's just today, it just feels like I've been beaten up a little bit on my arm. But it's actually quite okay. But I took the day off anyway. I actually did stream yesterday and played some Elden Ring, which I'm currently addicted to. I say this because, of course, I'm streaming this episode as well, live on Twitch as we recorded. There's already people in the chat, making fun of me that this was the second take, because on the first take I couldn't say Thursday. I'm gonna. I don't know. Indie Gaming X in chat making fun. I might have said the 17th of Margit, which is a boss in Elden Ring. But anyway, let's not get into that. Let's talk about politics today. Well, politics. Yeah, I guess it's politics. It's I've been talking on the show a lot about hate speech and why I think the so-called fight against hate speech is a problem. And I think today I got a news story that is a complete what the fuck story that really encapsulates it. But before we talk about that, I want to give an update on the Biden laptop story, because something really important happened today. Actually, breaking news. Breaking news here. I mean, you might remember on episode 84, this was the 18th of November, 2020. I was talking to Mike. We were talking about Trump, Biden, the media. This was, just before the election. And, the episode was after the election, of course. Yeah, this was obviously after the election. But we talked about the Hunter Biden laptop story. I think I talked about it before the election as well. So if you need a quick primer, what happened is the New York Post, which is apparently it's the U.S. oldest newspaper. It's a bit of it's a bit yellow pressy, I would say. And they ran a story that they'd gotten an old laptop from a repair shop. Well, a repair shop had gotten an old laptop, and they apparently looked at it. And somebody hadn't encrypted it or whatever. And so they figured out that this was apparently Hunter Biden's laptop, so Joe Biden's son. And there was some incriminating shit on this laptop, some emails and some pictures. And they ran several stories about this. Now, this was quickly branded a Russian misinformation, so propaganda. By the air quotes intelligence community in the US, so who said, this is lies and Russian lies, and I talked about it because Glenn Greenwald, who the guy who originally broke the Snowden story, which I really didn't like for the longest time. But I've become quite fond of him because he's doing some amazing journalistic work. I think I still don't like him as a person, but he's doing some good work. He was writing about this, or rather he was not writing about it. He was at the time working for The Intercept, which he had co-founded after the Snowden stories. and co-founded on a kind of on the idea that the highest ideal of the publication would be journalistic independence, right? And he was gonna write about, or he wrote an opinion piece about this Biden laptop on saying how he was of the very strong opinion that it was real. He did some fact checking, and he pointed to fact checking. I'm not going to call it fact checking. I'm going to explain later why. Some research he had done and colleagues had done, where basically they did the thing you do if you want to verify something like this. You have a cache of emails. You go to the people that are mentioned in the emails and go like, is this actually these actual emails you sent? And then they can go, yeah, I got the whole conversation here, and so they can prove to you that they're the actual emails, that they have the same emails word for word. And then you can basically know that this is genuine. And so he had written about that, and he said, it's a scandal that this is being covered up basically by claims of Russian misinformation when it is clearly isn't misinformation, right? I mean, at the time he was like everybody, I think I was as well. It doesn't really I was prepared to admit that, maybe the Russians found the laptop, or there was Russian influence involved, which I don't even know. I don't even believe now anymore. I think it was just, straight up like the Post said it happened. But I always said, that the provenance of the information doesn't change the information. And this was, of course, not only about Hunter Biden, but also about Joe Biden, because basically Hunter Biden, never did anything without his dad, right? There's emails where he goes. I mean, the idea was at the time he was at the board of a Ukrainian, which of course obviously is relevant today very much, energy company, and he was getting paid $50,000 a month, and people were like, why? He's never been in the industry, why is that? And basically the what people assumed was going on was that he was being paid for the influence, right? Because he's Joe Biden's son and he can influence Joe and his dad, and there was some information also in emails where he was basically, I can get my dad on board, and my dad can help you out, and he's got influence in Washington, stuff like that. And so this was implicating Joe Biden, which is why the story was buried by pretty much most of the mainstream publications who were on the side of Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden was running against Trump. Everybody was of the opinion that Trump was evil, so you couldn't hurt Joe Biden. So you had to kind of sink the story. So everybody was like, yeah, let's run with that. Which was probably, I don't know, probably a CIA plan. Greenwald thinks it was CIA plan, but definitely came out of the intelligence community who said, this is Russia. And they were really fishy. They didn't say, which everybody, well, not everybody, but Greenwald pointed out, and actually some publications also pointed out, that they didn't say it was Russian misinformation. In this letter that was always quoted in these articles, the intelligence community in air quotes said that they couldn't prove that it wasn't. Right, so it was basically they were insinuating it was Russian misinformation without saying it was, so that they old spy trick, so that they couldn't get proven wrong at the end. And Greenwald actually left The Intercept because he was at The Intercept. He wrote the story up, and the people he had put in charge of basically the publication he founded, was saying we can't publish this because it's going to hurt Joe Biden. And Greenwald said, I mean, we founded this thing to be independent, to do independent journalism, no matter let the chips fall where they may, right? This is not about I don't like Trump, basically, is what he said, but still, we need to publish this if we're responsible journalists. But they wouldn't. So he quit The Intercept and went to Substack, which he's been writing ever since, independently on Substack. It seems to be quite successful doing so. And so obviously he's been following the story. And today he's published a piece on Substack where he writes about an article that the New York Times published this morning, which basically confirms everything Greenwald said in November 2020, or even October, right? End of October 2020. which basically proves that all these articles and all these fact checks, in air quotes, that were published back in the day were all wrong and embarrassingly wrong. So Greenwald writes about this. He writes about the following. He writes the following about this. I can't talk. I need more coffee. It's been a long day. This morning, the New York Times published an article about the broad, ongoing FBI criminal investigation into Hunter Biden's international business and tax activities. Prior to the election, the Times, to their credit, was one of the few to apply skepticism to the CIA's pre-election lie, noting, which is, that Russian misinformation story, noting on October the 22nd that, quote, no concrete evidence has emerged that the laptop contains Russian disinformation. Because the activities of Hunter Biden, now under FBI investigation, directly pertain to the emails first revealed by the Post, the reporters needed to rely upon the laptop's archive to amplify and inform their reporting. That, in turn, required the New York Times to verify the authenticity of this laptop and its origins. Exactly what, according to their reporters, they successfully did. That this cache of emails was authentic was clear from the start. Any doubts were obliterated by publication of Schreckinger's book. I think I talked about this book briefly on the show here as well. Schreckinger's book 6 months ago. This was a Politico reporter who wrote a book about this whole thing, about the Bidens and Ukraine and this laptop. And based largely on a lot of material on the laptop, which is why in the book he explains why it's authentic. Now the paper of record itself explicitly states not only that the emails were authenticated, but also that the original story from the Post about how they obtained these materials, they, quote, come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop, appears to be true. So no Russian disinformation at all. This is just Hunter Biden being an idiot and bringing his laptop to a repair shop, and then it was broken. He just left it there. And he hadn't even encrypted his fucking hard drive, which, I don't know. I'm prepared to believe that because the guy just seems to have coked his brain away or just not been very intelligent from the start. So, yeah. What this means is that in the crucial days leading up to the 2020 presidential election, most of the corporate media spread an absolute lie about the New York Post reporting in order to mislead and manipulate the American electorate. And now we come to the point that's even more important. I mean, this stuff's important to me. I talk about this all the time because I'm a journalist and I'm, interested in journalism and journalism quality. So, but, I always feel it's a little bit inside baseball. Probably doesn't interest everybody listening to this show so much. But, now we come to tech. And now we come what happened as a result of this, and this is still happening, and which actually ties into our second topic later on. To continue with what Greenwald writes. It means that big tech monopolies, along with Twitter, censored the story based on a lie from the, quote, intelligence community. It means that Facebook's promise from its DNCA operative that it would suppress discussion of the reporting in order to conduct a, quote, fact check of these documents was a fraud, because if one had been conducted, that no fact check was even published. Oh, I think he mistyped here. So they didn't conduct a fact check because if one was even published, and if it had honestly been conducted, it would have proven that Facebook's censorship decree was based on a lie. It means that millions of Americans were denied the ability to hear about reporting on the candidate leading all polls to become the next president, and instead were subjected to a barrage of lies about the provenance, Russia did it, and the authenticity, disinformation of these documents. Whatever else is true, both the CIA/media disinformation campaign in the weeks before the 2020 election and the resulting regime of brute censorship imposed by big tech are of historic significance. Democrats and their new allies in the establishment wing of the Republican Party may be more excited by war in Ukraine than the subversion of their own election by the unholy trinity of the intelligence community, the corporate press, and big tech. But today's admission by the New York Times that this archive and the emails in them were real all along proves that a gigantic fraud was perpetrated by the country's most powerful institutions. What matters far more than the interest level of various partisan factions is the core truth about U.S. democracy revealed by this tawdry spectacle. I mean, he's very polemic in some places, but I generally agree with Greenwald. What's happening is that the press, especially in the U.S., takes information from intelligence sources and just publishes them and just believes it. And even like puts people that were ex-CIA, like, CNN put the ex-head of the CIA on its programming for several, almost, was it years? Like as a pundit. So somebody who's been lying because it's their fucking job to lie. That's what people do. I'm not even judging them. That's their fucking job. If you work for an intelligence service, the whole point of an intelligence service is, so an intelligence service is there so the government can do things and keep them secret, right? It enables the government, like, no matter how you, we can have a discussion, and I talked about this on the show several times, whether this should be, whether a democracy needs an intelligence service, right? Or, an intelligence service as they are right now, which is basically a government agency that is largely free of the laws that all other government agencies are beholden to, right? And the argument is that you need that to protect democracy. That's not a discussion I want to have today, but like that's, whether we agree that should be done, that is what they are doing. That is what intelligence services currently are for. So as the press, you cannot believe anything anybody from the intelligence community says, right? I mean, if you're a journalist and if you talk to a politician, I mean, you need to check everything anyway. But like, if you talk to a politician, there's at least a chance that they are truthful. I mean, they might just mean it well, right? And they might say the truth like any other citizen. But it's less likely if they're a government politician because, but let's not get into that. But if you do that, that's all right. But if you talk to a spy or somebody from the quote intelligence community or a PR person, I mean, there's probably PR people listening to this podcast, and I don't want you to think that I put you in the same categories as intelligence community members and spies, basically. But, from a journalist perspective, it's the same thing. Those two jobs are basically, your goal is, in public relations as well as in government propaganda, your goal is to put whatever your organization, be it the government or the company you work for, into the best light possible, right? And as a journalist, you have to assume that people who do this will lie, or will at least not tell the full truth and hide things, to make whatever they're doing appear better. That's their fucking job. So I think we know it's right, and you can put it less polemic, but basically it is somewhat of an unholy trinity because, like, first of all, the journalists are just believing shit that comes straight from basically the CIA in the US, and then they're publishing that, and then big tech, i.e. Microsoft, the cloud companies, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, the companies who run the big, public parts of the web, Amazon, they are aligned with this, right? They are, especially when we get to the topic that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, which is hate speech. They're like on one side, right? The journalists are writing about how hate speech is so bad, and then they're saying, the big tech companies need to filter and censor more hate speech, and then, and I think to a large extent, this is born out of the government, the intelligence community, which is using the press and is using these tech companies to censor stuff they don't want published. And this is, what Greenwald means by historic importance is that we know this for a fact. Now, in this case, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is what happened. People in the intelligence community, whoever those were, lied about this laptop, or at least, they didn't really lie. They just heavy-handedly misdirected, and the press just ran with it. And parts of the press claiming to do fact checks, which they, like, I just hate this. Like, I wrote on Twitter today that basically when somebody says fact check now, you have to assume it's propaganda, right? It's just like recently we had the thing where basically there was there was a story out there, or there was the idea out there that there are relatively secret bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and there was the worry that the Russians might, in their invasion, might seize them, and the press, the mainstream press, and their fact checkers were working very hard for about 2 weeks to tell everybody that this was a conspiracy theory, and that they'd fact-checked that, and that there were no secret bioweapons labs. Well, what they said, there were no bioweapons labs. We're talking about secret bioweapons labs, right? If you think about that, just divorce that from everything you know. You can't, like, the idea of fact-checking something like this is ludicrous. How do you fact-check that there's a secret lab somewhere? You don't know, you just don't know. The only thing you know is that it does not exist. It might be very well hidden and you might not know about it. So that very idea is ludicrous. But like the mainstream reader, like the somebody who just reads the New York Times, and I mean, largely this is a US problem, but wherever you are in the world, it just gets amplified everywhere, right? Because the German press just basically, and I know this, I mean, you can, I've first of all, I've seen it happen firsthand, not in the political arena, but I've talked to people who work in these areas, and they say it's just the same thing. The German press largely just copies off what the American press did the previous night, and like for some, it's not even. I mean, it's understandable because they don't have any people, and like if the New York Times, like in the US, that many people, right? They might have an office in Washington, whatever, and a few people there, but like they can't do they don't have the sources and everything. And if the New York Times goes, yeah, we've checked this, and you generally trust the New York Times, then you just defer to them. That's just how the news works. That in itself isn't bad, but like if the US press continues to do stupid things like this, right? The German press, if they were actually good journalists, they would go like, no, with this story, like the last journalist in Germany must now understand that you can't just copy this stuff, because it's like the American press obviously does idiotic things, like just believing propaganda from their own intelligence service, like in this case, right? But they don't do that because they're too much like they read the New York Times all day, so they think like New York Times journalists, and they're all aligned. They're all like largely politically aligned. They're all somewhat on the left, progressive people, and they've largely scared everybody else out of the newsrooms. Which that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but that's just the way it is. You can see, I can for every, I mean. In the US, I don't really know so much, but in Germany, for every big publication, Der Spiegel, die Zeit, SZ, Süddeutsche Zeitung, that is, the FAZ is a bit of a, they were relatively conservative from the beginning, but like for those big three, probably also for the FAZ, I can tell you of several, more conservative leaning, center right leaning journalists that are not there anymore. Because for obvious reasons, because they were like Greenwald, they were writing stuff that the political mainstream, I would say, in the newsroom deemed not savory and didn't want to publish, and then you just get it's not like you get fired, but you basically at some point you don't want to work there anymore on your own. Indie Gaming says, if you can't find the secret lab, does that not confirm the fact that it's indeed secret? Yeah, or that it doesn't exist, right? But it might also just be very secret, yes. But to finish that story, that was so ludicrous because last week, it actually came out in was it a Senate hearing where Victoria Nuland, who, oversaw the whole Ukraine, the Euromaidan situation. I don't want to call it a putsch because it wasn't really a putsch, but, the US involvement in the Euromaidan situation for Obama. Victoria Nuland, I've played a sound clip from her before. She's the woman who in that leaked phone call said "fuck the EU." That was about Ukraine. Anyway, when she was asked under oath if there are actually bioweapons labs in Ukraine, she said yes, and she actually said that they're worried that the Russians might actually find them. So turns out all of that fact checking was false and dumb and idiotic. So I don't know. It's just. The problem with the fact checks is that they're written by the same journalists who write all the other articles, and they just don't do any fucking research, or they're too dumb to do anything, right? I mean, I've explained. I did a show on this podcast. I did an episode about the problem with facts, and there are a lot less verifiable facts in the world than you might think. And if you're a journalist and you actually have to go and find out if something is actually a fact, for a lot of things, that is harder. Like, for example, right now, if we're talking about the situation in Ukraine right now, there is 90% of probably 95% of what you read on the news, well, let's say 90, is based on government propaganda from one side or the other, right? It's like what the Russians are saying is happening, what the Ukrainians are saying is happening. There are journalists on the ground, but they're not many. This war surprised everybody. There were very few journalists in the country. A few of them actually left. Now there are more in there, but they're doing a very, very, very dangerous and hard job. A lot of them were killed. There were several journalists killed since this started, and it's just very hard to get reliable information, right? So if you wanted to do a fact check right now, is like, this outskirts, this part of Mariupol or whatever, is that now in Russian hands? Like, that is probably something you can't determine, right? Unless you're the CIA and you got all those fucking satellites, or you are actually on the ground. But, even then, it's kind of hard. It's kind of even based on observation. Like, okay, I see some Russians here and they've got tanks here, but that does that actually mean that they control this part of the, it's like, it's not that easy, which is why these fact checks are mostly dumb, and you shouldn't believe any fact checks. But I think the biggest problem here is this, like, even I mean, the election is done, that's all over. It is somewhat funny to me, though, in a very sad way, that there was all this talk about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's involvement in Ukraine. Joe Biden's involvement also in Ukraine while he was vice president for Obama. And as soon as he's president, we have a war in the country. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. One might actually become a conspiracy theorist when you think about that a lot. But I mean, that is in the past. I mean, I wanted to give an update here. I also want to point out that I called this. I mean, I called it based off of Greenwald, but I called this, when I talked to Mike, I said, dude, this laptop I'm pretty sure it's real. And it's just a scandal. Not only that was reported like that in the press, but the biggest scandal is what Facebook did, right? And what Twitter did. So what these social networks did is they censored very important political reporting that in the end turned out to be completely correct. And they censored that based on input from the intelligence community. So based on inputs from professional liars, from spies, And they went and started censoring, and you couldn't actually post the news story on Twitter, right? They would delete that post and probably even ban your account or whatever. Just imagine that. And some, I think a lot of people understand. They go, oh, well, it's Twitter shit anyway. This is how the news gets spread today. It's all on Twitter and Facebook. That's where the journalists get their news. If you watch TV, that's where they got the news from. It goes less and less across like news wires. I mean, still, DPR, Reuters, AP, stuff like that, of course. But more and more comes through social networks. That is how we form our opinions. That is how society forms opinions. And that is extremely powerful. Like, years ago, I remember I was, doing a Linux podcast at the time. We talked about how you gotta get away from Google, because Google has so much influence over society, because they have influence over everybody's life. Because just what you know is largely dependent these days on what Google tells you. Because if you don't know anything, you go to Google and you ask Google, right? And if they don't want you to know something, if somebody wrote something on a website that's true, but that Google doesn't want you to know because it's politically inconvenient for them or whatever, they can then just hide that in their search results and you will never know it existed. So they can form public opinion. But it's even more powerful and even more direct if it's done by companies like Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call them now. If it's done by Facebook or by Twitter, because that's where discourse is happening. That's where we form our opinions. That's where politics and policy is made. That's where all the politicians are. That's where all the politicians get their information. And if they just go and censor a completely valid news story because they don't want people to know about it, because it might implicate a guy who they want to be president. They don't want the public to know the truth about that president or that future president, they hope. Then that is like a huge influence, right? And something happened this month. What's it now? About a week ago. That actually shows even better of why this is so dangerous and why we can't trust these people. Because something that Facebook did now is just like, it blows my mind. It also blows my mind that this wasn't reported, everywhere. And it blows my mind that everybody is not shouting about this and complaining about this. And what I'm of course talking about is, I've talked about this on this show often, hate speech, why I don't like that term, why I think it's often misdirected and used as a political weapon, and we now see this because Facebook, who we talked about on the show several times about their rules and what they think is hate speech and whatever. But get a load of this news story. This is on Reuters. This from the 10th of March. Meta platforms will allow Facebook and Instagram users in some countries to call for violence against Russians and Russian soldiers in the context of the Ukraine invasion, according to internal emails seen by Reuters on Thursday, in a temporary change to its hate speech policy. The social media company is also temporarily allowing some posts that call for the death of Russian President Vladimir Putin or Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, according to internal emails to its content moderators. Quote, as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we have temporarily made allowances for forms of political expression that would normally violate our rules, like violent speech such as death to the Russian invaders. We still won't allow credible calls for violence against Russian civilians, end quote, a Meta spokesperson said in a statement. The calls for the leader's death will be allowed unless they contain other targets or have two indicators of credibility, such as the location or method, one email said in a recent change to the company's rules on violence and incitement. Quote, we are doing this because we have observed that in this specific context, Russian soldiers is being used as a proxy for the Russian military. The hate speech policy continues to prohibit attacks on Russians, the email said. I mean, this makes no sense, all right? Like, they're saying in two sentences, they're saying we allowing to call for the death of Russian soldiers, but we continue to disallow attacks on Russian. Russian soldiers are Russians, right? This has nothing to do with the military, right? I'm pretty sure that if I go and call for the death of members of the US military for their illegal invasion in Iraq, or Afghanistan, but Iraq's a better example, based on blatant lies, things that we know were blatant lies. Hello, Colin Powell. That was like, I like how you go like connected to this. You go to any tech website or whatever, right? There's like, we stand with Ukraine and we condemn Putin's illegal. This is just the side note. Illegal invasion, right? What the fuck is an illegal invasion? What are you people, these idiots, these are like programmers or whatever, like people who never studied anything in the humanities. I mean, I quit university, right? But even I know that like, they think that international like rights are actual rights and that it is illegal to invade a country because there's a I don't know a human rights court in Den Haag or whatever, and then you get put before a judge and it's illegal, right? That's not how international law works. That's not what international law is. There's no police that comes and arrests you. Saying an invasion is illegal is completely idiotic. And if you ever did even an hour in university, in politics, or in history class, you would know this. If you ever talk to anybody who knows anything about foreign relations, you would know this. It's idiotic. Anyway, so that was just a side rant, because it fucking pisses me off. Indie Gaming says, I'm invading. I have a document to say it's okay, honest. So, I mean, this is idiotic, right? Because this is obviously... This shows you that this whole hate speech stuff has nothing to do with like stopping evil or something like this. This shows you that something that is evil is evil, and you're not allowed to do it on Facebook unless it targets somebody Facebook currently doesn't like, right? Then it's okay. Like what the fuck? No, like either it's hate speech. Either you have a moral argument that, or a legal argument in this case would be the same thing. Let's talk the moral level first. Either you have a moral argument that calling to murder somebody is hate speech, is something we do not want in political discourse in our democracy. Then it doesn't matter who you are calling, who you want to murder. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's Stalin, Hitler, Vladimir Putin, or Olaf Scholz. It does not matter who it is, right? If you say that's hate speech and we don't condone that, then you don't condone calling to kill somebody. Full stop, right? That's the moral argument. Now the legal argument. If you have laws against hate speech, then you need, like, laws have to be defined in a way. You can't just go like, if you call on killing Germans or Americans, then that's illegal. You go to jail. If you call on killing Russians, then that's okay. Like, that's not how laws work, right? Murder is illegal. It doesn't matter who you murder. It doesn't matter. There is no like moral argument there, right? There's a famous murder case in Germany where, was it in Switzerland? The guy who, the air traffic controller who caused two airplanes to collide in midair because, he was overworked or whatever, or didn't pay attention. And he was murdered later by one of the parents, I think, of one of a relative by somebody who died in the midair collision. And then there's no argument in court where the judge goes like, okay, now we debate if it was justified that you murdered that person. That's not how criminal laws work, right? Murder is murder. It doesn't matter why. Literally, that's how, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but like, I mean, it's obvious, right? There's no, something is either illegal or it's not. There's no like, oh, it's justified in this case. I mean, there are some laws where like, there are some qualifications on, for example, if it's not murder, if it's like if somebody breaks, so for example, in Germany, let's say I'm allowed to have a gun, right? And somebody breaks in and then charges at me screaming with a knife, and I'm just like sitting here cleaning my gun, which I legally own, and I shoot him. And I can go to there will then be a trial, probably for murder or manslaughter or whatever, and then I can, I can have an argument where I can say this, I have a right to self-defense. This is the only way in this moment I could defend myself. The guy had a knife. He was literally a meter away from me, and I just had my gun here, and that was just the best way to defend myself. I shot him 2 times. I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted to stop him. He died, right? And then you might not go to jail, and you might actually be declared, that they might actually drop the case. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't manslaughter involved, right? And with murder, obviously, it's because it's predetermined. That's why you have to figure out it's predetermined. There's no way that can't be murder and you can get off. I mean, you can be declared legally insane, right? But then you, like in Germany, it's not like you don't go to jail, but you have to go to like a mental institution, whatever, right? It's not like you get off the murder charge. That's how criminal law works. So like either both in a legal argument and in a moral argument, what Facebook is doing here is completely idiotic. And it should be obvious to anybody. And it just caused everything to like this just exposes that this whole hate speech thing is not about stopping anything that's evil. What they're doing is they're declaring things they don't like in their political view and declaring that to be bad, and you can't do it on the platform. But you can do the same thing if you're doing it in a cause that they think is just. It's just ridiculous. But it gets even worse. If this wasn't even bad enough, we have a story on The Intercept, now obviously without Glenn Greenwald, because Facebook even thinks it's okay if you're pro-neo-Nazis. It just have to be the right neo-Nazis. Don't believe me? This is what The Intercept writes. Facebook will temporarily allow its billions of users to praise the Azov Battalion, a Ukrainian neo-Nazi military unit previously banned from being freely discussed under the company's dangerous individuals and organizations policy, The Intercept has learned. Now, we could talk about how having even such a rule is idiotic because it doesn't work. I mean, Germany has 50 years of experience of banning Nazi symbols, and you can tell that it does absolutely nothing. But that's a whole different episode. Going on with what the Intercept says here. The Azov Battalion, which functions as an armed wing of the broader Ukrainian white nationalist Azov movement, began as a volunteer anti-Russia militia before formally joining the Ukrainian National Guard in 2014. The regiment is known for its hardcore right-wing ultranationalism and the neo-Nazi ideology pervasive among its members. Though it has in recent years downplayed its neo-Nazi sympathies, the group's affinities are not subtle. Azov soldiers march and train wearing uniform bearing icons of the Third Reich. Its leadership has reportedly courted American alt-right and neo-Nazi elements, and in 2010, the battalion's first commander and a former Ukrainian parliamentarian, Andriy Biletsky, stated that Ukraine's national purpose was to, quote, lead the white races of the world in a final crusade against Semite-led Untermenschen, i.e. subhumans, end quote. Let that sink in. According to internal policy materials reviewed by The Intercept, Facebook will quote allow praise of the Azov battalion when explicitly and exclusively praising their role in defending Ukraine or their role as part of the Ukrainian National Guard. And they have like some examples, like, you know, the Azov battalion is doing its patriotic duty. That's like fucking saying the SS was doing its patriotic duty in defending Germany. I mean, yeah, they were doing that. Yes. They were, like, the SS was defending Germany. Yes, it was, yes. But, like, they were still Nazis. This is idiotic. This is like, what the fuck? And you know, just an aside, can we talk about the fact that the Ukrainian National Guard has a Nazi battalion? And they have a Nazi rune in their symbol. Like, it's not like, it really isn't subtle. It's like, this is the stuff that doesn't get reported in Germany, where everybody's saying, yeah, Ukraine, you know, Putin is evil, illegal invasion, you know, which is all true. Putin is evil, and this is it's not an illegal invasion because such a thing does not exist, but it's a disgusting invasion, and it is scandalous, and it's uncivilized, and it's barbarous. And it is evil. I would say it is evil, but you know, that doesn't take away from the fact that Ukraine has a fucking neo-Nazi battalion, and that, you know, since 2014, which that I'm guessing that isn't you know, that isn't a coincidence. I'm guessing they made that part of the actual National Guard when the hostilities broke out, right, in the Donbass. But like, what the fuck? Like, you know, everybody in Germany is just praising, like, you know, Zelensky and a hero, and look at the comedian running the government, and then it's like Putin says, yeah, there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Fact check, that's all not true. I don't know. They have a fucking national neo-Nazi battalion in their National Guard. I mean, what the actual fuck? I mean, it's like, people are always like, we talked about this on the show so much. It's like, right wing, left wing, right? You're either a communist or you're a capitalist, right? You're right, you're left, you're either progressive, like, people it seems that people cannot think in more than black and white anymore. They just can't imagine things like Ukraine being on the you know, on the victim side of a horrible war here, but like not everything in Ukraine being awesome, right? And they people apparently they can't marry thoughts. Like, people can't think like I feel that people can't think like grown-ups anymore. Like, as a grown-up, you have to hold different thoughts in your brain. Like, Putin is an evil asshole for attacking Ukraine, but NATO maybe also caused this whole thing by doing shitty things. Like, NATO and the European Union did some very stupid things in 2014. Like, and they can't put these two things in their brain, right? It's like, it's everywhere. Like, in this culture war, it's everywhere. People, like, you know, they can't marry things like, this person is black, right? And they're minority, and they're probably treated shittily in the US, but they're also an asshole, and maybe even a criminal, right? That it's like they can't put these two things together, and I don't understand why. It must be journalists' fault. I'm preparing to blame my own profession. I think it's just like boiling everything down to these headlines and these short things and the fucking TikTok videos of 15 seconds, right? I always have to think back when I was in Hamburg, and I was just, you know, freshly started my freelance career, and I went to this young journalists at the Spiegel, and I was like, I got in because it was like the last year where I qualified as a young journalist. I think it was like till you're 35 or whatever. So I was like the oldest person there. And I remember I went to this talk by this lady who led at the time, I think they shut it down now, the Spiegel TikTok department, and she was adamant, and she was talking about 20 minutes how, like, it's very important that we do journalism on TikTok because we need to reach the young audience, right? And which, you know, you need to reach the young audience. I'm with you there. But I was just sitting there for 20 minutes. She was going on about this, and I basically couldn't really listen to her because I was thinking, like, how do you do journalism in 15-second video clips? And I've since, you know, maybe I'm old, but I am old. But I formed the opinion that it is impossible. You know, journalism is not saying, and that's something that I think a lot of journalists these days think, which is bad, especially like in mainstream, in TV, and in newspapers, where they think journalism is about telling the reader something, like what they think is a fact or whatever, right? They tell them how it is. But to me, that's not journalism. To me, journalism is trying to tell somebody what, like, there's this famous, it's actually written in the Spiegel's headquarters when you go up the stair. It says, is it schreiben was ist? So write what is, like, you know, just write what you see is happening. That is true, but journalism is also explaining how you got there, I think. Especially in today's world where everything is very, very gray, right? Where we talked about the situation in Ukraine, which you can't, like, I want to do an episode on what's happening there, but I really can't because you don't get any information that you can verify. So when you're talking about, like, okay, the Russians captured this city, like, you can't just do a 15-second video going, like, or a headline, the Russians captured the city. You have to go and explain where you got that information from. And then you have to say, well, you know, this is from a Russian government source. And then you have to say, maybe we can't trust them because there's a war going on and we don't have people on the ground because the Russians will fucking shoot them even though they're wearing press vests. So we don't know. We can't verify this. And you know, I think you can't do that. But, like, I think maybe I'm going to be old man fat now for a bit more. I think we're getting a generation of people who don't care about that, who just go, I just want the 15 seconds, what's going on there, right? And they lose all ability to critically think about things. Astral C says there's a big victim grief culture today, and governments and big companies exploit it. Yeah, that's probably one of the things, right? And, you know, I mean, Ukraine is the victim here, and they're very, you know, especially the civilian population. Of course, they're the victim, but, like, I'm not even disputing that. The problem is, like, you have to, like, yes, accepting that in your head, you still have to, like, think further, right? So if you go, like, oh, Ukrainians are victims, and then you hear big in Germany right now so the position is, illegal invasion, Putin is evil, so we need to help Ukraine, so let's send them weapons, right? And that step is just like, yes, you can say they're victims and this shouldn't be happening to them, and yes, we should help them if we can, but then you have to think, like, you have to think a step further. What happens if we help, if we give them weapons? What happens? We will prolong that war, right? Because these weapons that we're sending them are presumably going to be used to shoot people. And, you know, there might be Russians and we might not like them, but they will be victims. And you know, war doesn't easily stop because, like, you know, if you arm the other side, it's just going to prolong the war. And like, you have to think, like, geopolitically about this. Like, if you go, like what are you actually trying to achieve? Like, the German politicians that are sending these weapons to Ukraine, if I was a journalist in a position where I could ask them, where I could, you know, we have an interview, right? I'm sitting down with Olaf Scholz. I'm going to say, what is your goal here? Like, do you really think, assuming the Russians are hell-bent on conquering Ukraine, assuming because we don't know, assuming you don't know what the support is in Russia, let's presume Putin has enough support or enough propaganda, it doesn't really matter, to pull this through. Like, what's your goal here? I mean, Ukraine cannot withstand an invasion by Russia. Like, you can ship them all the weapons we have. You could literally give them all the weapons and it doesn't matter. Russia will win this war by sheer, like, force. They will win this war like they won World War II. Germany had, in World War II, on the Eastern Front, if you read some history books about it, Germany was vastly superior. It had vastly superior weapons, better. It went from, like, literally better handguns, better tanks, more ammunition, a better supply train, better trained soldiers, better tactics, better strategy, and still lost the war. Because Russia, just like the Soviet Union, just the Red Army, just fucking, by sheer persistence won this war. And they just have more soldiers. And we're talking about a situation here in World War II where actually they didn't have enough rifles. There were battles in World War II where the Russians didn't have enough rifles, and they gave every third person a rifle, and just doomed everybody to die. They were just literally soldiers unarmed running across, like, the front line, and the German soldiers would shoot them, and they would shoot people they didn't need to shoot because they were actually not armed, until they ran out of ammunition. And then the Russians went, all right, now you ran out of ammunition. Now you're fucked. Now we don't even need guns. Now we can just bayonet you to death because we have 3 times more people. And, this is literally how this, like, if we're talking conventional war, and if we're talking Russia will actually keep this up, Ukraine can't win this war. They literally can't. And it's like common sense. You don't even have to studied history, right? And that is something you need to keep in mind when you say, okay, we wanna arm Ukraine. You're gonna prolong this thing. I mean, there can be an argument that that's good, but, like, that argument is not being had. There's nobody in the news who says, well, what are we doing here? Like, what is the situation? Everybody's just assuming that at some point the Russians wake up and then Putin gets assassinated or whatever. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but, like, if that's your goal to win this war, then that's like a long shot, right? So it's just like, I don't know. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking everybody's just getting dumber. Like what's going on? Why can't nobody can hold 2 independent thoughts in the head anymore? Nobody can just ask critically, because this story, like, why is this story not all over the news? I can tell you why, because, like, the popular opinion is we are pro-Ukraine and we actually like what Facebook's doing here. But I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like, Facebook can now never go, oh, we're fighting hate speech, because they just shown us that they only fight hate speech when it's in their political interest. They don't have the moral high ground here. I mean, I think they never had it, because my problem from the beginning was that hate speech just isn't defined. Like, people define things as hate that are, like, if you're talking grammatically, I don't know, if you go from the actual language, then that's clearly not hate. It's not the definition of hate, right? So, like, especially on social networks, or, like, in comments on gaming websites or whatever, the stuff that is termed hate speech, there's largely just trolling. And trolling, per definition, isn't hate, right? Trolling is just what somebody. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. It's despicable. It's a despicable thing to do. But these people that do that don't actually hate the other person. They just like to see them suffer. That is not the same as hate. Maybe they're sadists. But, like, hate is I talked about this on the show before. Hate is a very, very strong thing, right? So, and the problem is that where that comes from, especially the hate speech definition that we have in Germany, I also talked about this, the existing laws we have, there we're actually talking hate speech, right? We're talking, Nazis, anti-Semite propaganda, where the Nazis were actually going, like this Nazi in Ukraine, going, these people are Untermenschen, they're subhumans, they're not human, so we can kill them. That is hate. That you're actually hating Like what Hitler was doing, he was actually stirring up hate against Jews in the German population. That is actually hate speech, right? And then you can have the same thing. You can have like say you're in a game, or like you're in a chat in a stream or whatever, and somebody's saying the gas all Jews. I think in a vast amount of cases that is not actual hate. That is trolling. That person might even be like very young and not understanding what they're doing or whatever, or they understand, but basically what they're doing is they're using the worst thing you can say because it causes such an outrage. But I believe that in a vast amount of cases that doesn't actually mean that they actually hate all Jews, and then they actually want to do that, right? So for me, this whole hate speech thing was a problem from the beginning because it's just not defined. There's just no different, and that's dangerous. That leads to something like this. That leads to a situation where you can just define something you don't like as hate speech. Jonathan says hateful speech doesn't equal, Jonathan in the chat right now, doesn't equal actual hatred. Politically, maybe not. Linguistically, I mean that is what hate is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have a different opinion. I mean, there can definitely, you can be of a different opinion of me. And I like that, you're chiming in chat. And if people are listening to the podcast, going to get to the feedback section later. Please provide feedback. Go to privatecitizen.press. Show notes are there with all the links as well. Haven't mentioned that this show. Yes, you can definitely have a different opinion on that. I mean, traditionally speaking, before they changed the hate speech laws in Germany, it was that. I mean, the things that were legally classified as hate speech in Germany, I would say. So the thing is, you don't actually have to hate somebody to use hate speech, but the stuff that was classified as hate speech was historically something that was connected to actual hate, I think. And the problem with speech, of course, is if somebody says this, you don't know if they mean that, right? Somebody can say something and they mean it hatefully, or they can just say it to troll. And that's maybe where the difference of opinion comes in. But like, to me, I mean, where that argument would lead would be, if I'm just assuming here an argument for Jonathan, but basically, if you go, okay, what we're terming hate speech is not actual hate, but we're terming that, we're presuming that, or we have to treat it all the same. So we're going, this could be hate. So I'm going to say make it illegal. It doesn't have to be illegal, but let's say we'll forbid it on our platform, right? Yes, you can certainly do that. You can say you presume that this actually, presupposes hate, I would say, because I mean, you don't know if somebody's just trolling or if they're an actual Nazi, right? So I understand that. I think the big difference here is that we're largely now talking electronic systems and chat systems, and that the unfortunate problem is, I think, if you want to see the big picture here, that we're moving into a world where something like this is algorithmically decided. So it's often treated, so the actual expression is treated without looking at the intention, because a computer system can't do that, an algorithm can't do that. Whether, in stark contrast to previously, hate speech laws in Germany, you assume there's going to be a court case and there's going to be a judge, and the judge will always look at intent. That doesn't mean that, so for example, in Germany, it is forbidden. So if I'm on the street and I say, I use the Hitlergruß, Heil Hitler, if I say that is illegal. And it is illegal independent of intent. But if I get sued for that, and there's a court case, my punishment will be dependent on intent, right? The judge will look at intent, and automatic systems don't do that. Same thing here. Like, for me to have just said this on this podcast or in this live stream is not illegal, right? If you now go and to go to the German police and say he said that, then they look at the video and you go, he was making an argument, he was explaining. Just the same as, the Nazi flag is illegal in Germany, but if you are, you're not allowed to print it in a book. But if you do a school textbook and you're explaining history, you're allowed, right? So there's differences there. But I think we're moving to a world, sadly, where more and more of this kind of thing is decided not in a courtroom, not by humans, not even by like human moderators, but by algorithms. And so we're moving away from the intention, looking at the intention, where I think with something like hate speech, this is very, very important because it's speech, it's human expression. It's you can say the grammatically the same sentence and mean it completely different depending in what context you say. And especially hate, I mean, it's in the very name. Hate does imply intent, right? You cannot unintentionally hate somebody. It's like you can't have murder without God, I forgot the word. What is it? Premeditation, right? It's just not murder if you don't have premeditation. Anyway, Jonathan's been posting in chat now. I have to look this up. Sure, that's the difference, but hate speech is just a gathering term, and the meaning of the two words isn't important. It could also be called the flutter wings. But that's not true. That's not true. That is explicitly not true, because you have to look at where the term comes from. And it's not like it came out of nowhere and they just used the term. There were what I'm talking about is there have been, for example, let's stick with the German argument, because I know the German laws in this regard very well. In Germany, there have been hate speech laws for 50 years, and now they're being subverted, in my opinion, to cover other things. But you can't just say, we arbitrarily called this hate speech. No, we didn't, because the people who make an argument that we should do this and that we should say, if I call for example, if I call if I call for all gingers to be murdered, right, then that's hate speech, because the argument is explicitly because that's the same thing as calling for all Jews to be murdered, and that was always illegal. Right? This is not how history works, and this is not how politics work. It's literally the terms are important. This is something that Adam Curry always has on our agenda, and I completely agree with him on this. Words are important. If this was just the flutter of wings laws, then why isn't it called that? Like, why didn't the people who want this stuff covered by hate speech, just invent a completely new term and make that into law? I can tell you why, because it's hard, because nobody will just do that. It's easier if you go, it's like that thing over there, right? It's the same thing. Why, whenever somebody wants to infringe on your privacy and wants to look at shit, they go child porn, even though it has nothing to do with child porn. But they always lump it in with something else. That's specifically how politics works, because it's much easier to get people to accept it if you do it this way. Anyway, I'm going to read chat now. Astros has a perfect example of the algorithm bullshit, because yesterday on Twitch I was playing Elden Ring, and somebody told me, I don't know if it probably was Astro C. There's like a monster that walks around that has white rocks, right? And he told me to kill the white rocks or whatever, or hit the right rocks on this monster. And Twitch banned it because hit the white is racist, right? Because white could mean white people, and hit the color of skin is like banned. It's like idiotic. Anyway, you can unintentionally harm somebody no matter your intention if you say stupid shit though. Yeah, you can. Right. I'm not disagreeing. The question is, should the state make, or like, should you legislate against that? For lack of a better term, we're not only talking about laws, we're also talking about platforms doing this thing on their own, right? But like, you can, like, people get hit by cars unintentionally all the time. People get killed on the road every day unintentionally by other people. But we're not making cars illegal, right? Because doing that would have huge side effects on our society. And this is how you, like, do you want to restrict people's speech because people could get unintentionally hurt? Like, if you want to do that, you have to think about the side effects this has on all of society, right? That is always the problem, because you're creating a precedent here, right? That's why I always say, when somebody goes, "Oh, we need to do this," and like, even if it's in my opinion, like, even if it follows my political, the things I believe in politically, I always try to think about, like, what happens when that gets applied by the other side, right? And we can have an argument. I mean, there's certainly an argument that that you can have, where you can say, yes, we need to ban these things because it's hurting people. I'm just on the other side of the argument, because in school I went through years of this, and I learned that words don't hurt you. If you, like, you can condition yourself. I'm not saying everybody can, psychologically everybody's different. Certainly some people won't be able to, but like, it's just kind of like alcohol, right? There's millions of people drinking alcohol, and they're not all alcoholics, and they're not all destroy their lives, right? And the same with weed. Like, there's probably hundreds of thousands, millions of people smoking weed, and it doesn't do anything to them, but some people just can't deal with it, and they destroy their life with it. And then it's the question, should we ban weed, right? Because of that, because some people can't deal with it. I personally think no, because I'm more of a I emphasize freedom, right? In any if you give me a decision between two things, I will probably always err on the side of the more free, let people decide for themselves, the grown-ups side of the argument. And you can be on the other side. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm right. This is just my opinion. It's my personal bias, and that's where I'm coming from. Same thing with child pornography laws to combat. But the thing is, like, that's exactly also the argument, right? Because so when you have the thing where they go, we need to look at your iCloud or whatever. We need to look at everybody's iCloud. We need to decrypt all your chats, whatever, right? The government needs to be able to look into that to fight child porn. Then we fight that, because we know you can fight child pornography without that, right? And we know it's been proven that doing this kind of thing doesn't stop child pornography, and that actually the state and the police, it's a completely different argument, but like, they could actually, if there wasn't so much corruption involved in these cases, they could actually stop a lot more child pornography and trafficking, and actually, stop it at the point where it's created, instead of stopping it basically at the point where it's consumed. Right? So that's also like one of these things where it's not like, it's never, in no case is it ever black or white, right? It's in no case is there a case where you go like, okay, it's child pornography, we do this, and everybody must agree because it's that. Like, anybody who argues like this, and there's a lot of argument going on like this currently, we're like, there can't be no matter of opinion here. We need to do this to stop child pornography, or there can't be any argument here. It's definitely Ukraine are the good guys, and whatever we do on the other side is justified because Ukraine are the good guys. It's just not, it's never true. It is literally never, ever, ever true. And if I ever made an argument like that, I was fucking wrong. it's always shades of gray. There's always, like, life is so complicated, and if you deal with adults, it's you need to understand that it's never that easy. And that's why I also say don't ban, like, I'm not saying, like, don't ban anything, and don't go, like, there shouldn't be hate speech laws. I'm not saying that, right? So I'm of the opinion you shouldn't ban, like, the Nazi flags or whatever. But, like, I'm totally okay if you say, like, let's have a platform where if you say, let's kill all Jews, let's ban that. Yes, that is, but nobody needs to say that. Like, that's not a valid opinion in any context. But, like, I'm just saying, be careful what you apply this to and where this goes. Because if you start to apply the term to hate speech to things, then, and you need to, and the other thing is, if you do it, you fucking need to do it in all directions. You can't just say, well, this is the Russian military. It's just, like, you can never say kill a person on Facebook unless it's the Russian soldier. A Russian soldier is a human being, right? And I mean, in this case, it's so idiotic. We had news. There were news where they were saying, oh, the Russians, they're so horrible. They recruited recruits, right? Weeks before this invasion, they recruited recruits and then sent them to Ukraine. Said, this is just an exercise, and then slap bang, they joined the Russian army like 6 weeks ago. Now they're in the middle of a war zone fighting for their lives, right? I mean, that's a very emotionally gray, morally gray situation, right? If you now go, we need to kill that guy because he's a Russian soldier. Yeah, but, like, he's a 20-year-old kid who didn't know what the hell was going on. They handed him an AK-12, put him in a tank, or put him on the back of a troop carrier, and now he's in fucking Kharkiv, and everybody's shooting at him and shooting back, right? I mean, to me, there's never an excuse to join any army, but, I mean, it's not an excuse, but it's morally gray, right? The guy is not Vladimir Putin. He's somebody's son. Just like everything is gray. My grandfather was in the fucking Waffen-SS. If they had shot him in Finland, I wouldn't be here. There's always, like, these people. Even that's the thing with, I've talked about this often with Nazis in movies and stuff. Yes, the Nazis were evil. They did evil things. But at the end of the day, most of those guys were somebody's son, somebody's dad, somebody's brother. They were, a lot of them were just like, like my grandfather never taught. I don't really know a lot, but from what I know is, like, he was just basically brainwashed by propaganda. He believed this shit. He wanted to fight for his country and defend his family and his home or whatever. And then he was stuck in a situation where he just couldn't do anything else. They would have shot him if they go, like, shoot those 50 Jews. I mean, just there's a great German movie. When was it made? I'm gonna look this up now. This is a great movie if you wanna like watch the gray. Wanna know about, like, these gray shades of gray. It's called Stalingrad, but I don't know which Stalingrad movie it is because, yeah, it was made in 1993. It's called Stalingrad. It's a German movie by Josef Filzmeier. I think it's I really like das Boot. It's very close to that, and it's this explains it very well. Like, in what kind of a situation you are when you, like, you shoot those guys or we shoot you. Right, it's never gray. Like, even with Waffen-SS soldiers, it was never gray. Nothing in this life, aside from Hollywood and video games, is ever gray, and that's something you always have to keep in mind. Anyway, I'm gonna stop ranting now. Algos are evil, definitely. Jonathan and I, we agree on that. Sabaton sings through the Nazi lines, Algo Nazi. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and not even the algorithms. I mean, people. There are people who think Sabaton is a Nazi band because of that line. And if they just understood enough English to, it's a song about storming the Nazi lines. It's like about D-Day. It's the most anti-Nazi song you could have. And people think it's a Nazi band. Like, people are dumb. And algorithms are even dumber. We can agree on that. Anyway, yes. Thanks for chiming in. Well, maybe ban nukes. Nukes are bad. And Jonathan says Stalingrad's an excellent movie. And also apparently there's a more contemporary and Danish one that's called Undersanded. Never heard of that. Maybe I have to watch that. Actually, see, nukes are bad. It's something I always thought, but I'm coming around. I'm personally thinking in Germany's situation right now. So I'm not saying. So I'm against like arming up and whatever. But yes, I think our politicians are completely right when they say we need to react to the situation. But I don't think like we need a conventional arsenal for the same reason that Ukraine doesn't need that, because you can't fucking beat the Russians with that. I think what Germany should do, actually, I always said, just get the nukes from the Americans. I mean, apparently we have the codes, but apparently they're dual coded. But we don't need those nukes, because they actually, the German government is looking at getting those nukes, and they're shit. Like, they're just like plain dropped nukes. Like, they're no use against Russia, right? Because like, even if we do buy the shitty F-35, the Russians going to shoot them down. What Germany literally, I think what Germany should do, this is my personal opinion, in the current situation, and Germany wouldn't even have to be in NATO. We could quit NATO. We'd have an army like the Japanese, which is actually not an army. We just have a national guard and defensive army, right? We put in the constitution that German soldiers, like, it says they may never be deployed in an attack war outside of the country. But we should change that. We should say German soldiers should never be deployed outside the country. They can just only be deployed against, and never against their own population, only against threats from outside and only within the borders of the country. Then we really shrink our army and we just get fucking ICBMs. And every fucking federal state gets one ICBM silo. We have, 16 federal states? I can never remember. 16, 18. Oh, God, now I have to look this up. Otherwise, people will be shouting at me. I can't remember this since I was in school. Because you always have to learn this, and I never could. I think it's 16. Yeah, it's 16. So every federal state gets one ICBM silo. And then the only thing we do, MAD, right? Mutually assured destruction. The only thing we do is we say to the Russians, we've hooked this up to this Dr. Strangelove computer device. And if we get attacked, we just fire the nukes. And we only need to fucking glass St. Petersburg and Moscow. If you glass those cities, Russia is done. I mean, Russia will still be there, but it's like, talk to a Russian, that's like their cultural heritage. That's literally everything. Everything's in. So basically, everything these days in Moscow, and all the cultural heritage is in St. Petersburg. I mean, they'll still have an army. They can still retaliate, but at that point, it's like they're gonna fire their nukes, and the planet is over, and the Americans, and then we're all dead. And I can my novel has the plot of that's not the plot. The backstory of my novel will probably become true at that point. But I think that's what we should do, because I think that would be the most humane thing to do. Because assuming that MAD works and that there's not going to be nuclear war, nobody will ever attack us anymore. We don't need to kill anybody. We don't need to shoot anybody with bullets. We'll just go, at the moment one of your fucking tanks crosses the border, we'll just nuke everything. I mean, we don't even have to shoot at Russia. We could just nuke Germany. We could just nuke ourselves. If you're trying to invade, we're just going to nuke the country. And that's probably going to cause global warming and all that. Cause the real global warming or whatever. That's my personal opinion. And while we're at it, get some more nuclear power plants going. Get shut the coal plants down, get some nuclear power plants back going. Get some safe ones, some actual good technology. And then we can probably in 10 years, we'll have enough plutonium, whatever we need, to in the time we just build the ICBMs, let the Americans tell us how to build the fucking ICBMs, and it's all done. Then we don't really need an army. We just need some. Maybe they get white helmets. Like, don't the Japanese guys have white helmets? They don't have camo. They're just pink. They just have pink uniforms with big penises as it's the fuck you army. And the ICBMs are pink. They're pink. They're huge pink phalluses. They look like penises. And so if anybody attacks Germany, our last act on this planet will be to fire huge pink dildos at everybody and obliterate the planet. Okay, that's my plan. Vote for me as Chancellor of Germany in the next election. I'm gonna found the pink dildo ICBM party. I think that's a successful thing we can do. Anyway, that's enough talking about hate speech. We are already into the geopolitics, so I might as well go straight into the feedback then. So first off, I want to point to a thread in the forum. Obviously, you go to privatecitizen.press, all the links, including this link. There's a great thread in the forum, which was the feedback thread on episode 106, where I largely talked about coronavirus, but it developed into a discussion between Steve B. And Petit Michel, who are both Canadians, although I think Petit Michel is now in the US, but he's born Canadian, so obviously he still keeps tabs on the country, and they're both I don't know, they're on. It started about the discussion about the truck driver protest, which is something actually I'm going to talk about in an upcoming episode, and especially the resulting monetary ban, right? That emergency law, and that they can just freeze people's accounts, which I think is very important, not only to Canadians, but I think it's the blueprint to what will happen to all of us. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming episode, but look at this thread. It's really cool. It's like two people from different from different sides of the argument, having a really good discussion, a really civilized discussion. I really like this forum we have. It's really cool. And it's different viewpoints. As somebody who doesn't really know that much about Canada, I learned a lot about the country. Just like, I mean, they have two viewpoints, and I know that I can't take any of them as fact because that's not how it works. But like, if you follow a discussion like that from people also who have different opinions, then you get a good picture. I really like this. It's really good. There's good links in there. I just can recommend reading that. There's a link in the show notes. And then also Necros commented again on episode 109. This is our listener from Moscow who, this is the episode I did on the on Ukraine war in Europe, and then the war and my take on on NATO and what's going on there. And he said he just wrote an offhand comment that he think I butchered a lot of things. And I said, well, I think last episode I said, well, you should set me straight then. And to his credit, he did. So he wrote the following in the forum, and I'm gonna try to address this a little bit. So he writes, first of all, Russia. Russia is a federation today and has been a federation basically since early Soviet years. The individual subjects of the federation have very little autonomy since Russia is very centralized, but they have their own governments and parliaments, at least formally. Today, Russia exists in the same borders as it did in the Soviet times after World War II, except for Crimea that was annexed in 2014. Totally agreed. I don't think I said anything else, did I? I mean, Crimea, of course, also used to be part of Russia earlier. Famously annexed by Catherine the Great, I think. And then obviously there was the Crimean War. But yeah, anyway, Necros continues. The Soviet Union, the USSR, was very much like a federation too. It included Russia and 14 other republics. Each republic had its own government and its own language, along with Russian that was used as a state language all over the USSR, but not much autonomy either. Foreign affairs, criminal code, and various other laws were union-wide. The republics didn't even have their own communist parties. Those were just branches of the single communist party of the Soviet Union. That is true, but I mean, especially early on, there was a lot of, I think I said independence. I don't think it's independence. That's probably the wrong word. But like, for example, with the communist parties, especially under Stalin, and especially before World War II, there was certainly a lot of discussion, and countries were run very differently. Especially, for example, Georgia was run. I would say independent, but things were very different in Georgia than they were in Russia, for example. And they did have some leeway, and there were like some other countries where where there was a big Mongol presence, or Mongol descendant. They had their own. They had a communist party that was a descendant of the one communist party, of course, yes, but there were very different opinions there how communism was supposed to be reached, and even Stalin gave them significant leeway to do things differently, because he realized that in a country that was historically descendant from nomadic people, from Mongolian tribes and stuff like that, you just couldn't impose the same rules that you could in Moscow. But this is probably also a matter of viewpoint, and I would generally defer to a Russian in this context, because I'm not an expert on this kind of thing. Of course, I've never even really studied Russian inner politics. The only stuff I studied in university that had to do with Russia were foreign relations, because I was largely studying Bismarck, and at the time of the Tsars there, and what was going on there. But I don't actually know that much about inner Russian politics, except from books I've read after university, stuff I'm just reading. Like that comprehensive Stalin biography I'm reading just because out of fun. Yes, you can make fun of me because of that. My wife makes fun of me often. I can remember back when we were still flying, I left my Kindle in the plane, and when we landed in Hamburg, and so the next day I go to the the desk where you can go, if you left stuff on the plane. We lived very near to the airport, so I could just walk there. And I go there with my wife, and I talk to the lady. It's like, have you found a Kindle? It looks like this, my Kindle. And she's like, yeah, we have it here. And then she said, okay, you need to prove that it's your Kindle. If I open this book, this Kindle, what's the book you're currently reading? And I'm like, I'm on part 2, page, I don't know, something 500 something of this Stalin biography. And she's like, I don't even have to open the Kindle. I'm going to do this, but I don't nobody would make this up. And my wife just laughs out loud. I'm like, yeah, nobody would read this on a plane other than me. Anyway, those were just branches of the single communist party of the Soviet Union. In hindsight, it also cracks me up. In Europe, the 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, Belarus. So this is all the countries of the Soviet Union, right? Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova were Soviet republics, as well as Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. These were not separate countries. These were all part of the USSR. There I have to stop you. That is also a matter of argument. I think, I can't really say legally, but officially, they were separate countries. They were separate nation states. There were Soviet republics. They were incorporated in the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union was not like the US, where, its member states, which are obviously not nation states. But I mean, but maybe also that's a matter. It's like, that's also gray, right? Because, of course, it's kind of weird. The example that comes to mind is the Olympic Games, right? Where you had the USSR has their own team, and it's kind of you could take that as an example that's actually the nation state. But on the other hand, it's kind of like there you have the UK, the United Kingdom has its own team, but then in football it's like England, right? So I was going to make an example there, but I don't think it doesn't work. Yep. I mean, I think technically there were states, but you are correct, they didn't have foreign policy, right? So if you take that, right? So yeah, from I would tend to agree with you because, like, from a political, like, foreign policy, international relations kind of view, they were definitely not states because they were not sovereign. And even though I think they did claim, the USSR did claim that, but they don't have foreign relations. And if a country doesn't have foreign relations, it's not its own country. But then there's gray zones either, because Eastern Germany, right, was its own country and technically had foreign relations, but really didn't, right? They just did what the USSR said. They were a absolute puppet state. So it's one of these gray points. But anyway, I'm going to continue to read out what Necros says. These were not separate countries. These were all parts of the USSR. In the podcast, you refer to Belarus and Ukraine as countries in the Soviet sphere of influence. That is a mistake. They were not in the Soviet sphere. They were Soviet themselves as much as Russia. Well, but like, Soviets just means, a Soviet republic, right? I mean, Soviets, in Germany, we say Räterepublik, so it just means they had Soviets. Eastern Germany had Soviets, right? And I would have said Eastern Germany was Soviet, but, like, technically, I think it wasn't, because they weren't called Soviets. And it was not officially called Soviet Germany. Yeah. I mean, I'm not quite sure. I think maybe you're technically right. Maybe I was technically wrong. I'm still not seeing that. That led me to wrong conclusions, but maybe it did. Anyway, I'm going to continue with what Necros is saying here. The Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance, commonly known as the Warsaw Pact, yeah, because it's just a fucking propaganda term, was a collective defense treaty, pretty much like NATO. This was the immediate sphere of Soviet military influence in Europe. It included, besides the USSR, as a whole, republics had no individual foreign relations: Poland, East Germany, Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Albania, and Bulgaria. There was also an economical pact that included all the same countries: Vietnam, Cuba, and Mongolia, and also Yugoslavia as an associate member. The USSR was keen on keeping those as buffer states, not Ukraine or Belarus. Those were USSR proper, and even invaded when they were likely to defect. Bulgaria in 1956, Czechoslovakia in 1968. East Germany had Soviet troops deployed all along, and Poland came close in 1980, but no military invasion took place. Yeah, see, I think maybe you're probably right. I probably made some technical mistakes there. Like, my main point was basically only this. There's Russia, and then there, to me, right? To me, speaking big picture. In the Cold War and today, but like in the Cold War, there was Russia, and then there was a bunch of countries which I would call in the sphere of Russian influence. And to me, as somebody who's not Russian and not that much interested in the internal politics in this case, but in geopolitics, it doesn't really matter if Ukraine is part of something called the USSR. It is like literally not Russia, right? So geopolitically, it was always a country that, if for Stalin, for example, it was what's the word? Expendable, right? And for Stalin, it was literally expendable. I mean, the Holodomor, he killed like millions of Ukrainians because he shipped the whole wheat to Moscow, because he was like, Russians are more important to me than ethnic Ukrainians, so we can starve them and then we have something to eat. So that's basically what I meant. And I don't actually don't want to get too hung up in the technical actual terms, because they don't really matter in what I was trying to discuss. What I'm saying is that Russia, historically speaking, has built a buffer countries. And there are different levels of buffer, right? Either they're in the USSR or they're in the Warsaw Pact. But like from a geopolitical perspective, the difference between East Germany and Ukraine was negligible. Like for the Soviet government, but like, you know, the Russians, basically, if you want to simplify it, they were expendable countries, but there was so much in their sphere of influence. Like, you know, if NATO invaded East Germany or invaded Ukraine, it would have been the same thing. Like, you know, the Russians would have declared war. So doesn't really matter. And the purpose was the same to me, to have a stretch of countries that are between your enemy and your heartland. Because, you know, I wrote about this. I probably should put a link in the show notes. I wrote I started a newsletter about this whole geopolitics thing. It's called realpolitik.news. And I wrote a longer article about this called NATO Expansion and Putin's War in Ukraine, where I talk about this, where I basically talk about the fact that there's Russia, and then because both of Russia's capitals or historic capitals, so both Moscow and St. Petersburg, are relatively close to Europe. Like, Russia is a huge country that stretches 2 continents and extends from Europe all the way to the other side of Asia. But, and this is very important, especially in history, because Moscow and St. Petersburg were so close to Europe, it was always essentially geopolitically a European country and always involved in European politics. And if you look at the modern history, you know, anything since the Middle Ages, like all the wars on the continent, Russia is involved, right? They're all European wars, all the big ones, Russia is involved. And I have this theory, which I don't know who came up with this, not my theory, but like that Russia built this wall of buffer countries between actual Russia and the rest of Europe, because Moscow and St. Petersburg are very close to Europe, right? And if your NATO border is in fucking Ukraine and in the Baltic states, then you're very close to, well, Ukraine not so much, the Baltic states very much, you're very close to Moscow. And the Russians know how that feel, because Napoleon went all the way to Moscow, and, you know, they had to burn it down to stop him. And, you know, Hitler almost did. And so I think there's, like, my theory is there's a national fear in Russia. And it has persisted. Like, this was under the Tsars, this was under Stalin, and it's under Yeltsin, and it's under Putin. It's like the national fear that, you know, you get attacked from Europe and you need, like, this buffer zone. And I think for Putin it's a really specifically bad case of this, because Putin is a KGB agent. He's a Chekist. He was brought up. He was a spy in Germany in the 80s. You know, what is it, 83 till the 90s, when the USSR fell. He was in Germany working undercover for the KGB. So, and the KGB, you know, the sword and shield was specifically built with one of the purposes was to enforce this, right? To protect the country and to protect the heartland. So I think it's, like, so to speak, in his pathology. It's like that's Putin's pathology. Jonathan says, put it in the cloud. On premise is dead. Yeah, just put Moscow in the cloud. But anyway, I'm going to link that in the show notes. Necros ends with Albania quit the Warsaw Pact and practically quit the Economical Union in 1968. I don't know how the Soviets let that be. My guess is that Albania was separated geographically. There was Yugoslavia between it and the rest of the pact. And after it became clear that Yugoslavia would not join, trying to hold on to Albania was considered not worth it. Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, I definitely made some mistakes there. It's no surprise. This is not my special not specifically my area of expertise. It's just something I've always been interested in. And my theory might be completely wrong, but that's just how I analyze the last 400 years in Europe. And I always go back to Bismarck. That's why I call this newsletter Realpolitik, and it has Bismarck in the logo, because Bismarck was always insisting. Bismarck basically said, if you look at Europe and you look at where Germany is, and you look at all the other countries, when you do foreign politics in Germany, you got to come to an understanding with Russia. Because if Russia is against you and there's a major war, you're fucked, as Germany, right? If you're France or Spain, or you have more of a buffer, like then Germany's your buffer. If you're the UK, you're all right. You got to see, but Germany is right there. And the Russians even, this is way before World War I, had a history of just marching through Poland, right? Also, Germany extended a bit more further east in Bismarck's time, but yeah, and I think that was such good wisdom that was proven right in 2 world wars afterwards, and it's still right today. I think. And I'm not saying that what Putin did is in any way, shape, or form justified. I'm saying it's understandable. If you look at it from a geopolitical standpoint, it's completely understandable. It's ruthless and it's evil, but it is completely understandable. It's like as understandable as if you look at what Hitler was trying to do in World War II. Well, some of it was understandable. Attacking Russia, not understandable, plain dumb. But that doesn't mean I agree with what Hitler did or that it isn't horrible. But there's strategically, you can say, okay, if you just if you abstract this, if you just treat it as a game of risk or diplomacy, it's you can see what somebody's trying to achieve and how they're doing that. And what I just object to, for example, in the media right now, especially in Germany, is the media going, it's completely not understandable what Putin is doing. And our politicians going, we could not have foreseen this. And I'm like, what the fuck? How can you be foreign minister if you have not the single most clue about geopolitics? And you can't see how this actually makes sense if you're an evil, ruthless motherfucker, right? But you have that you can say, I'm surprised that Putin did this because I thought he was a better guy than that. You can say that, yes. But you can't say this is completely barbaric and not European, and something like this has never happened in Europe, and what the fuck, even especially if the war's been going since 2014. That's just plain dumb. That's just shows that you have no understanding of history, you have no understanding of power politics, you have no understanding of geopolitics, you don't know anything, you should be foreign minister. Jonathan says Bismarck needs to get back to his Brötchen, that he's pre-ICBM content. Yeah, but still, that's the thing. That's the thing with the ICBMs. Exactly that is why this is all still valid. Because with MID, with mutually assured destruction, basically you are bound to the same conventional warfare, that was all the geopolitics is still in effect from 300 years ago. Yes, okay, in Bismarck's time you didn't have tanks, and it took you a lot longer to, it took Napoleon a lot longer to go to Moscow, but basically it's all just quicker. It's still warfare hasn't changed that much. There are exceptions where you can wage a war like NATO and the Americans did in the Balkans, right? Where you don't actually land any troops pretty much, and you're just bombing them into the Stone Age from the sea. There are things like this, but if you're talking about attacking Germany and you're assuming MAD, so you take the nukes out of the question, then it's all still valid, right? It's basically it's the same an attack by Russia against Germany today, assuming conventional warfare, would be much the same like in World War II. And that's why all the NATO plans haven't changed, right? That's why the NATO plans are still like, basically going to have to give up half of Germany because you can't defend the northern German lowlands. You can't, like, when you're talking tank warfare, you can't fucking defend Niedersachsen. They're just going to go through there. So you basically have to make your stand at the mountains. You have to defend the Fulda Gap in the south, and then you have to make your stand where the lowlands end, and where you can actually try to stop them advancing. But if you're the Netherlands, you're fucked because they could basically swing around in the north if they want to attack the Netherlands. I mean, this didn't change, right? That stuff is still very much in effect. That having said that, the Bismarck Brötchen, which is named after Bismarck Hering, is excellent. Bismarck Hering is great. Named after him, by the way, because in his later years, he wouldn't eat anything else. He'd basically just eat fish and cake. He just eat the Bismarck Hering, like pickled herring, rolled up generally, with a toothpick. Well, not if you put it on the bread roll, the Brötchen, but yeah. Or cake. In the afternoon, you would eat cake, which I think is great. And then his doctor would say, you really need to eat something else. And he would say, no, I was fucking Reichschancellor, shut the fuck up. which I respect. Anyway, that's it for the show for today. Let's wrap it up and let's go to the credits and thank everybody. Oh yeah, and if you want to provide your own feedback, please go to private.citizen.press. Everything's in the show notes. There's a link. It's a contact link. But every show notes also under producer feedback has links to that. If you want to support this madness, where I say things that people won't have said, like my goal, like somebody said about news that. News is everything that somebody else doesn't want published. And that's kind of my goal in life. That's how I run this podcast, which means I won't get paid for doing any of this because nobody else wants it published, but I'm doing it anyway. But there's a way around this now. It's called the value for value model, and it enables you to become a producer of the show and just support me and enable me to publish this shit. So if you want to do that, you can become a patron on Patreon and support me on a monthly basis, or you can just send money via PayPal to producers at fab.industries. Everything is explained in the show notes. Also, what the value for value model means. There's a link there. So private.citizen.press, check it out. And now I have to thank everybody who's made this show possible, including Jonathan, who is in chat right now and will be very careful and look out for my pronunciation of his name. So I'm gonna give my best. So thanks to Georges, Steve-O's, Butterbeans, Michael Small, Rodane the Insane, Jonathan, M. Hette, Michael Mullen. Now I want to do Danish for Mullen. No, Mullen. No, that's Irish, right? So it's got to be Michael Mullen. Jensen. Is it Jensen? Fuck, I don't know. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Dave, 1I11G. Nobody knows how that's even pronounced. Could also be Lilk. I also kind of think it's Lilk. Jaroslav Lichtblau, Jackie Plage, Philip Klostermann, IKN, Bennett Piata, Sandman616, Vlad, Tobias, Mod7, Kai Sears, Joe Poser, Fadi Mansour, Dirk Didi, Rizel, Avis, David Potter, Mika, Mr. Amish, Cam, Dave Amrish, Ricky M, Barry Williams, Jonathan, RJ Tracy, Rick Bragg, Captain Eckert, Astral C, Robert Forster, Superuser D, and No Reply. Thanks to all of you. And if I pronounce any of your names wrong, please please feel free to yell at me somewhere. I also have to thank my Twitch subscribers because, as I say, I record this live on Twitch and also play a lot of Elden Ring. So they're either supporting this shit or me raging and dying in Elden Ring. My wife made a good joke. I said I'm going to play Elden Ring later, and she was like, "Geh sterben," which in German, "Geh sterben" is like literally it means go die. It's like go die in a fire. But she, it was good. Yeah, Astros, has a good point. Why not both? Yeah, exactly. Maybe they're supporting both, which means you're a very eclectic individual and you should be proud of yourself. Anyway, thanks to Mike the Dane, Jonathan MH_com, L Terrestrius Jim, Bacon the Pork, Redeemer F, Astro C1, who just chimed in there, The Punter, Hoover Star, Borglet, Quad Damage, Nomt771, Halifa, Indie Gamiacs, Mode 7 is unavailable, Sandman616, and Harry Vatana. Thanks to all of you. I also have to thank Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, who for many, many, many years have provided me with 2 servers that enable me to have the audio files up and for you to download them very quickly. So I appreciate that. Bytemark, amazing cloud hosting company. As Jonathan says, put everything in the cloud, put it on Bytemark. And that's it. The show theme is called Acoustic Roots by Raul Cavazarli, and I'm gonna play you out with some music now from Epidemic Sound, which I'm licensing, which I have to find, and I don't want to open my password manager here, so people don't I'm live streaming my desktop. That's always a problem. Luckily, it didn't show any podcast any passwords for my router. I'm gonna play us out with a song called So Long Oklahoma by Roy Williams. I'm gonna see you next week, hopefully on Wednesday, because I have no excuses anymore, no tattoos. If I'm not there Wednesday, it's Elden Ring's fault. Probably no. I'm gonna do a show on Wednesday, and also at some point extra shows to catch up with the ones I've promised you. We'll do that. See you soon. Aim to misbehave, and so long, Oklahoma.
I'm going back up to make my last stand. I'm gonna dust it off with my own hands. Black blizzard coming, old man keep running. You better get out while you can. We were broke, cold, let in, pushed out. Thought I heard it so, to up and leave this town. Head out west, they say, maybe California, and leave this dead land behind. So long, Oklahoma, I think they said farewell to me. Sleep beneath the stars in California, dreaming of that old used to be. I'm going back up until I can't stand. I'm gonna cut it down with my own 2 hands. Tall timber falling, I hear Tulsa calling, saying, won't you come back when you can? So long, Oklahoma, I think they said farewell to thee.
totally love it when they go in those songs where they go California. I don't know why. It always cracks me up. Okay, got that recorded, which means toothed vaginas, pink penises from the sky. That's we're gonna play the Halifa clip when we launch the nukes. This means I can fucking kill the potato, the voice meter potato. All right, I should still be able to be heard. Yes. Let me just see. Let me just play some music here, see if that works. Okay, that works. All right. So now I will edit this podcast, then release it, and then we can finally play Elden Ring, which is what we're all waiting for. This fucking podcast out of the way. Come on. Render my waveforms, you select computer. Right. Let's do this. Ti not so good at rendering waveforms. So I don't think Hindenburg is GPU accelerated, to be honest. I gotta say, my fucking Capture One photo editor got a lot quicker because that's actually using the GPU. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 111. Don't logic. For Thursday, this is episode 111. 111. For Thursday, the 17th of March, 2022. Peak hypocrisy. Don't use logic on me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Fab. Also, it just feels like I've been beaten up a little bit on my arm, but it's actually quite okay. On my arm. But I took the day off anyway. Before we talk about that, I want to give an update on the Biden. Do you guys know that? Is that on YouTube? Lawler, my eye. Can't type. Lawler, my eye. Fight. Why is that not on? No, not that Lawler. Lawler, my eye. My eye. That's probably not. Probably WWE has pulled it down. So it's a classic. So something really important happened today, actually. Breaking news. Lawler, my eye. My eye. Really important happened today, actually. Breaking news. Okay, I think we can put the chapter marker here. Breaking news. Breaking news here. Maybe. Oh, I hate it that it never deletes. Maybe a bit loud, that isn't it? That jingle's a lot louder than anything else, I feel. It sounds louder, probably because it's more compressed. Which is why we're gonna put it down a notch. So, but before we talk about that, I want to give an update on the Biden laptop story because something really important happened today, actually. Breaking news. That is better. Of why this is everywhere, and it blows my mind that everybody is not shouting about this and complaining about this. Everybody should be complaining. There should be more complaining. Germans aren't complaining enough. Delete cue point. Put in chapter marker. This. And what I'm of course talking about is I've talked about this on this show often. Hate can probably. By the way, I noticed this earlier. I'm sorry for the sweat. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's is it actually? Yeah, it's wet. I thought maybe it was tattoo color that would have been a problem, but it's actually not. I'm actually not losing much color. He was actually amazed that the first thing I lost so little color. Apparently, my skin retains the color very well. I think cool. that's a successful thing we can do. Anyway, that's enough talking about hate speech. We are already into the geopolitics, so I might as well go straight into the feedback. To the geopolitical feedback. Geopolitics are important. They are very important. Might as well go straight into the feedback. Doctor would say you really need to eat something else, and he would say, "No, I was fucking Vice Chancellor. Shut the fuck up." Which I respect. Anyway, that's it for the show for today. Let's wrap it up and let's go to the credits and thank everybody. I hate you, Jonathan, by the way. I want Bismarck herring now. I got no herring in the house. All I have is pickles. Which is okay, but it's not Bismarck herring. I want to delete the fucker. Delete it. Delete it. To the credits and thank everybody. Scene. Oh yeah, and if you want to provide your own feedback, please go to private.citizen.press. Everything's in the show notes. There's a link. It's a contact link. But every show notes. That's probably no. We'll do that. Yeah. See you soon. Aim to misbehave, and so long, Oklahoma. And I was pushed the button too late, so what we're gonna do is a little trick where we'll fix it in post, where we do this and then we do this. So long, Oklahoma. Is this the video you searched for? Okay, I'm gonna switch to another view before I click on this. Could be dangerous. Oh yeah, that looks good. Terry Funk vs. Lawler, empty arena. Thank you. This looks like what we're looking for. Why is there no audio on this? Yeah. Why is there no audio? Is it? No, it's not me, is it? But yeah, he goes like, my lullaby, lullaby, my lullaby, my lullaby. So good. It's classic overacting. Am I? Oh, I'm on the wrong audio output. That's why it doesn't play. A
victim of
yeah, there we go. Wait. Now I need to click on your link again so we get to the right. Sorry about this.
Terry Funk.
My eye!
Put it down now. The man's eye. Oh.
I can't see! Doctor! God help me! Help me, please help me! Help me!
That's right. His eyes hurt bad.
My eyes!
Okay, we'll get some.
My eyes!
Empty arena match. That's a stupid
Terry
idea.
Funk. A victim of his own plotting in there. Lawler kicked him right in the elbow, and the stick
he's actually
stuck Terry Funk
cutting
right in
into
the
his
eye.
skin there to get blood out, I think.
Somebody get me help.
We gotta get a doctor in here.
Whoa, now you
really
get.
That's awful.
Get me help. Get me help.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why
You
there are officials assigned to matches to try to keep some kind of order rather than have the animal type of thing that you saw here today.
Animal type of thing.
Jerry Lawler walks away, I guess the victor out of it, but they're pretty difficult. Okay, listen, Randy, I'm gonna get. Okay, wait.
Call a doctor, Lance, please.
I'm gonna get you a towel now. So good. So long, Oklahoma. How are you guys doing? You're still in quarantine. We are great. No, we're not in quarantine anymore. Actually, came to misbehave. I'm fine. And so long, Oklahoma. We stayed in quarantine like longer than we should have because Katie's still off work technically, and I'm just quarantine, no quarantine. It's just like it's all the same to me. I'm like at home anyway. If I don't go shopping or anything, we had like lots of stuff in the house, so we just stayed a few days longer for good measure. So it's all good. We're doing good. See you soon. Aim to misbehave, and so long, Oklahoma. Katie was acting like she was really sick there for a while, but I kept telling her it's not as bad as when I had the vaccination. Stop complaining. Stop complaining, woman. I really like his voice. It's almost like it's very it's maybe young Rod Stewart, or like little bit Van Morrison, although you cannot compare anybody to Van Morrison. Hey Jim, how are you doing, by the way? Thanks for the thanks for caring. Thanks for caring. I'm currently mostly hurting because I got my arm needled. Lola, my arm. It hurts. Get me a doctor. My arm. Yeah, I mean, I was never doing bad. Katie was also. She was. She's a bit tired generally, and was hit a bit harder than me because of pre-existing conditions. We're good. We're good. Chapters. Chapters. Chapalapters. Chapalabers. Chapalapters. Alright. Producer feedback. And toss a coin to your podcaster. O Valley of Plenty. O Valley of Plenty. Oh. Episode 111. Peak Hypocrisy. Episode 111. And we for some reason need to. I don't know if that bug still exists, but gonna do it anyway. Publish. No. All right. I'm gonna let that export now. Oh, I need to put. Before we do that, I said I was gonna put the link to the to that blog post. Why did I close that? Because I'm an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. Okay, now I'll need that later. So, see also. Underline. 109. Underlina. Kind of works. We'll do that. That's on there. Yeah, no, that makes sense from where it's at. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna let this export and then publish the podcast. And I also need to export it in FLAC and stuff like that. That's gonna take a bit. So I'm going to take a break. I need a break anyway. I need to get up, walk around a bit, maybe get myself something to drink, and then I'll be back. I'll be back in about 15 minutes probably. So the short break on the stream is going to be a lie. It's going to be 15 minutes or so. And then I'll be back, and then we'll jump into Elden Ring. I hope that's okay with you guys. So, yeah. See you in a bit. For some Elden Ring. Don't go anywhere.